So I love the fact that you brought in challenges, because personally, it's in the space of challenge when you're pushed to your uncomfort zone. At times, working with founders and really encouraging them to trust the employees that they have hired and let them do their job. Allow space for failures. What made me take the final decision to move out of my corporate career and get into coaching full time was again this question that I asked to myself. If I work for another 15, 20 years, and at the end of those 15, 20 years, if I reflect back and say,
what is the difference between coaching and mentoring?
so yeah, maybe if you look at like a map and a compass. A week back, I was coaching a founder of startup, and he had this interesting question. So he said that, my job is to take decision, but how do I even know if I'm making the right decision? What if I fail? So if a leader who is on words promoting, you should take care of your work life and personal life, balance it, but that same leader is sending emails to their employees at 11:30 p.m., 4 a.m. What you do with your personal brand is not so much of how you will benefit from it, but you're building your personal brand as an identity from a relevant standpoint.
Can leadership be taught, or it's just an innate quality people have?
What do you think?
Oh, I'm not the guest today. Hello, welcome to Talking Through. Today we have Kenneth Wheeler with us, who is a leadership coach and has had a very long career in HR. So let's talk to him. Hi Kenneth, welcome to Talking Through.
Hey Dipankar.
Thank you for coming down here in the studio to speak with us. Let's start by knowing a little bit more about you. Can you tell us?
Absolutely. Firstly, thank you for having me over. It's a pleasure. And so from who I am, I think my journey started from the laps of the Himalayas, actually. So my hometown is in Uttarakhand. And the place where I grew up in my ancestral home is a very unknown destination by the name of Bodhar.
Okay.
I'm not sure even if you've heard of it. But what happened there to me in my early stage of growing up was something that has held to me very strongly even till date. So from the terrace of our home, I had this privilege of viewing the Himalayas for 130 degrees. So it was
Wow.
like if I looked left and turned right, I could see these majestic snow-capped Himalayas. And every time I looked at them, it inspired me, but most importantly, left me with awe of recognizing that, in the scheme of nature, we are so small. And there are things that are just so humongous. And from there, I think I began my journey, which led me to HR and why I'm doing coaching. And it started with just being humble, accepting humility in the hands of things that are far greater and beyond you.
Yeah.
So from there, if I talk about my corporate journey, I started off with operations. Somewhere in doing the operations, I got exposed to data analysis, got hooked onto it, did Six Sigma, did quality for some time. Then again, in the space of working with an opportunity where I had to transition a process, do a training for about 10, 15 cohort, I realized that training is something that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So I got into L&D.
Yeah.
And then finally from L&D, while I was working in the space of startup ecosystem, it was my second startup. The CEO walked up to me one day and he said that, Kenneth, I've been hiring for the head HR position for 3 months. I'm somehow not liking anyone. And the person that I feel is the closest, but eventually I decline him. Somehow at the end of it, your name comes to my mind. So I feel you are the kind of person that I want for an HR. And he offered me to explore the opportunity, and I thankfully kind of took advantage of it and got into HR. So the journey from the corporate side of how HR happened to me is more of, I would attribute to part destiny and part direction. So this was the direction bit of it, that the CEO walked up to me. And if I look at it being destiny, or for me internally, I think it had to do with that beginning of humility, which led me to be very passionate about others and what is it that makes people click. I wanted to be a part of people's success stories. So the thought that throughout my career, even till date, that always hovers around my mind is, what can I do that when I meet someone, I can leave them feeling more inspired, more passionate, more fulfilling, and even more happier than what they were before I met them. So, this mindset and outlook has always helped me to look at the best in others. So, even as a leader or even as a parent, I'm more driven by a phrase, catch them when they are good or when they do good versus catch them when they do wrong. So, if you look at the combination of both part destiny and part direction, I think it was very natural for me in that sense to find my place in HR as that space where I knew I could do best justice to my passion, aligned with my values, to what I could offer to the organization. So I think, and that has naturally evolved for me to now be an executive and leadership coach as well.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Although we all know about HR as a profession, but I don't think I fully understand it, right? So I would like to know from you the challenges and the career opportunities, and how does a HR's own career graph is.
So I love the fact that you brought in challenges,
Yeah.
because personally, it's in the space of challenge when you're pushed to your uncomfort zone. And it's the uncomfort zone where maximum of your learning and development and growth happens. So if I were to look at from the lens of challenges in HR, what comes to mind is being the torchbearer of change. And we've all heard the idiom, change is the only constant.
Yes.
But like you would agree, and most of the leaders that you would speak to, it's not as straightforward as it seems. So, from the HR world, a change would happen in a sense where there is a leadership change or the management shape change that happens at the top. It could also come about when you have a merger and acquisition come into play. It could also be something which is forced, like we saw in COVID. And after COVID, we realized that globally, HR suddenly rose like a phoenix, right? So, being that torchbearer of change, while so much of different things, different perspective, change of policies, change of structures, when you have M&A aligning the two different cultures from two different organizations and making them one, I think that stood out as a challenge. The other thing that comes to mind is constantly aligning people to business objectives. In a sense, keeping the focus of the organization and the people glued to the organizational North Star, so to say. Never, never easy. But some of the challenges also came in the shape of people themselves, the dynamics of people, and how it is surprising that people can act and behave differently under different circumstances. So I've had the experience where someone who's been in the organization for a good number of years has been at their best when it comes to being professional as well as mannerism. But if some things were to change which did not align in their favor, the drastic 360-degree change that you would see in a person is something that has at times shocked me. To someone who's very cordial to suddenly becoming very aggressive, assertive. So I think that's another key challenge for HR. How do you, in that environment when it gets really difficult and you're under pressure of one or few employees damaging the culture that you've invested to set up, potentially creating an impact on the employer brand as well, to how do you navigate them and still have a conversation with them such that it ends up being a win-win situation. So I think that would also be one of the challenges that I would like to draw out. But if I were to say above all of this, I think one of the biggest challenge for an HR, especially at a senior position, is to act with courage. And what I mean to act with courage is it's more of a role that you play where you want to be someone who's showing the mirror to the senior management or the stakeholders. And the thing with Dipankar I've noticed and observed is with people at the top, the CXO's level, they are not used to people challenging their authority, opposing their opinion, or even disagreeing with them on day-to-day decision making. But for me, as an HR, how I really wanted to show up was someone who could take on that courage and say that work with leaders, but also take them in an inward journey to recognize that what they're doing on ground is that aligned with their values and the organization values or not. At times, working with founders and really encouraging them to trust the employees that they have hired and let them do their job, allow space for failures. And it is also at times where at that top level, you would make certain decisions, but you want to go ahead and challenge the leaders and say that the decision that you're taking, is it really for the greater good of the organization? Or is this decision based on something that is going to help you make look good yourself?
Right.
So I think that to me is the foremost challenge when you speak about the HR world.
When you are making certain transitions or transformations within the company, obviously it's not always in your control how the people in the company are feeling. They might be, following what you're asking them to do, but can't control their feeling, how they're feeling about it. How do you deal with that kind of a challenge?
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of HR being a people driven function. So you expect people to react differently, to think differently, and in a way, you have to honor that. So, to your question, when there is a difference of opinion, for an HR, it begins with acceptance that whenever things are going to be rolled out as a new initiative, a change in the policy, especially when that policy, maybe from the lens of the employee, is not favorable for them, but they see favorable for the organization. So that creates a gap.
Yeah.
And that's where you have a situation arising where they, on the face value of it, would say yes. But because they're not connected deeply with the cause and the purpose, you would not have them adopt to what you want them to do. So, in that sense, for me, if you ask me, I think it one begins with that acceptance for an HR or any leader. Because if you don't have that acceptance, then you push back, you become more assertive. You're trying to, in that sense, then force people to say, all right, I've done my best to explain what it means. If you choose to accept it, good for you. If not, good for you again. But that acceptance again makes you humble. It helps you and allows you to maybe lead with more empathy and compassion. And in that sense, it helps when you put yourselves in the employee's shoes and just go over a few reflection, in my opinion. If there is a difference, if I don't see the adoption to what I had expected it to be, then what has really gone wrong? What are the employees really challenged with? And have open conversation. But when you go into the conversation, I think the intent is very important. So if I'm going into a conversation of this nature with the intent that I will impose myself, I will be the winner, I will try and do whatever, but convince the person that that's the right decision the organization is taking, more often than not, you would not succeed. So the intention leading into the conversation has to be to understand the perspective, have that willingness to listen, and ensure that at the end of the day, you come out with something that looks like a win-win situation. So your employees don't still have to 100% agree with you. But even if you've moved the needle to change some perspectives for them, and even if you're talking to a group of 5, one of them says, okay, now I see this differently. I'm more aligned to what the organization is trying to do. I think you've done well.
So, what I want to also ask you is about how is HR as a career now versus it was when you started?
I mean, that's a wonderful question because HR has tremendously evolved, and it's not just in words. And especially for progressive and forward-thinking organizations, I think they've realized the merit of placing HR at the decision-making table. So to me, when HR started, like all of us would have experienced, it was more of an admin work that was taking care of basic things at an employee level to ensure that the organization is running as smoothly as it can. To today, where it is a strategic function, you have a lot of examples where people who've risen up the rank of HR to a CHRO position have transitioned into a COO and then stepped into the shoes of a CEO as well. And just last month, I happened to host one such individual who'd kind of taken this journey. So it's very different today. I would, in fact, encourage wholeheartedly for young professionals to opt for HR as a serious consideration when they're looking at their career aspirations. Because today, HR is the thinking mind, the partnering mind. And like I said, for someone at a top level, being acting with courage and being that face mirror for the people who are taking the decisions that's impacting not just the organization, not just the employees, but at times even the family of the employees, because it's all connected at the end of the day. So to be able to now have that privilege to be placed on the table, to be able to contribute very meaningfully, and for more and more organization accepting HR as a value asset when it comes to the people dynamics, especially considering that in today's world we've got as many as 7 generations working together at times.
Yeah.
So it's a multi-generational thing. And who better to understand the different dynamics of how people work, how they behave, how they act, other than HR. So I think it's a far evolved world today, and I would wholeheartedly encourage people to opt for HR as a career.
Right. And since a lot of new technologies have emerged in the last, couple of years, AI and others, has it had any effect on HR, or is it still untouched by it?
Oh, it definitely has. It would be almost foolish and denying
Yeah.
upright if I say it hasn't. But the thing with technology is again the perspective. Again, as a leader, if the acceptance is that HR or technology is an enabler, then I think you look at it differently. If as a leader or as an HR, you see new cutting edge technology to be something that's going to come in the way, possibly take away jobs, make it more difficult for HR people to integrate with tech, then it obviously becomes a challenge. So it has had its impact, but the way I would choose to see it, it's had its impact for the better. So if you look at it from the hiring industry as well, AI has been a boost. You've been able to fast track the hiring process. You're able to look at lot many candidates today in a lot shorter amount of time. You're able to have this ATS, which gives you the ability to map the profile in a better way. So all that helps. But eventually, I think for HR, even with the invention and coming in of these new technologies, the human centric skills is perhaps now more important than ever before. So the core of HR would still be placed on how can they lead with empathy and compassion? How good are they with their active listening skills? How good are they in terms of recognizing that if a problem exists, it has to be mutually and collaboratively worked together versus enforcing? So these human-centric skills, for HR at least, like I said, is more important today than ever before, even with the kind of changes the technology has brought into the HR world.
Oh, yeah. And obviously, it's not just HR. Everybody has gotten impacted by
Absolutely.
it. So it's probably naive to say that we won't get impacted by it, right? Also, is there a certain personality type that suits the HR job?
I think I'm going to go back to answer this question to how it landed with me. So, in some sense of it, personality types, the more diverse they are, it's actually the better. So, if you feel someone has not today transitioned from a marketing field to an HR, you would be wrong. If someone has not transitioned from a sales job to an HR, you would be wrong. So, people have now shifted to HR. And when I think about what makes someone who's probably spent a lot of his career in sales, in marketing, in finance, to ultimately move to HR, and when I connect to my story, I think it lands me to knowing and having clarity of your why. So someone who would, with a different personality, would still do well if his heart and the why is in the right place. So the moment, like for example, Tony Robbins, right? So he says that the moment you decide to serve others, you become a leader.
Yeah.
So that mindset has to be, I think, in the center of all the different personalities. If I move into HR, it is not really about me, but it is about me serving others.
Right.
Like Simon Sinek also
Yeah.
famously says that it's not really about as a leader being in charge,
Yeah.
but taking care of those in
In
your
their
charge.
Yeah.
So if your why, if your values, irrespective of your personalities, is aligned to this process or this mindset, I think you would do well eventually.
Yeah. And the two gentlemen that you just mentioned, both Simon Sinek and Tony Robbins, I do like what they write and express a lot, because I think they look at it from a really broad angle,
Yeah.
and not just like a very focused approach, right? Which is
Absolutely.
because the world just keeps developing into something else that we thought will not, right?
And COVID showed us a lot of that.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. And I think it also brought a lot of good out, like how people helped each
Yeah,
other and became better people. Right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's talk about the second phase of your career, being a leadership coach. How did that come about? What triggered it?
I feel I should do and I want to do. And he was very cordial. He said, you do what you do, but continue to work, see if you like it, etc. But I think I realized that when I was working, I was doing coaching. When I was not working, I was still doing coaching. Started feeling guilty that I'm earning, getting my salary from them, but not doing anything. And that's where I think the transition happened.
Yeah. And how is that? Has it been like? How's been the experience so far?
Oh, it's been overwhelming in many sense of it. Like when I had started, I had the acceptance that it will be difficult, but I realized very soon that it's way more difficult than what I had imagined it to be. But over the last year and a half, by God's grace, I think things are falling into place because again, that why is connected. And one thing that I missed out of what made me take the final decision to move out of my corporate career and get into coaching full time was again this question that I asked to myself. So I said, okay, if I work for another 15, 20 years, and at the end of those 15, 20 years, if I reflect back and say what gave me the maximum sense of accomplishment, what would that be? And I think that clarified with it for me because I was battling in my mind that I should set up myself in coaching before I give up my job, because finance is another part of it. You got a family to take care of, you got your kids to take care of. But I think that question and the answer clarified it for me because in an instant it was clear that if I continue to do my corporate role, the influence that I would have would be always limited to the set of employees that I'm working with. But if I get into coaching and use this talent and use this passion, I can impact lives at a much bigger scale, at a global scale. Then I don't have to be limited. I could do a lot more things. And I think that helped me move to ultimately coaching. So from that sense, it's been quite a steep learning, a lot of unlearning as well. But more often than not, once you're aligned to your core values and passion of what you want to do, things happen for you. So I realize that I'm more often than not meeting the right kind of people who are opening the right kind of doors, and it's building. I was very, very fortunate, Dipankar, that in my year and 3 months of being an executive and a leadership coach, I had the privilege of being recognized by the global ICF team for the contributions for one of the NGOs project that I worked with. And just last month, also got facilitated and awarded a certificate of recognition by the CEO of ICF. So all of that to happen in that short span of time.
Yeah.
I would say it's really been good.
Yeah. Before I go any further, just explain us a little bit about ICF.
So it's International Coaching Federation. So that's the global governing body, which is in a way licensing and creating authentic coaches. And I'm emphasizing on the word authentic because unfortunately for coaching as an industry, it's not a regulated form of a industry. So what that means is that anyone today can happily add a coach before their name or after the name and do whatever they want, charge whatever they want, and you can't really stop them. You cannot say this is not legal. So ICF in that context is that body where you have credentialed certified coaches at 3 levels. It's ACC, PCC, and MCC. MCC is the mastery. But once you've gone through their accreditation levels, you can, in your heart, know that, okay, this is me being an authentic person, having gone through the rigorous process of credentialing. It's not easy. You have specified number of training hours that needs to be done. You have specified hours of mentoring that you need to take from someone who's an established coach, ICF coach. You have 2 call recordings that you need to submit. Then you also have to give a written exam for 3 to 4 hours. So it's a process, and that's what separates it and really makes it authentic. And I've seen in my observation in the short period that many organizations are now welcoming with the idea of having coaches on board to work with their teams. And one of the things that helps them feel secured and comfortable that they're hiring the right person is when you are a credentialed ICF coach. So I think that is the impact and influence ICF has on coaches.
Right. And just for my own understanding and also for the audiences, what is the difference between coaching and mentoring?
Classic. It's a classic. It's a classic one. So I think when you maybe let me think of an analogy that probably helps clarify this better. So yeah, maybe if we look at like a map and a compass. So a map is someone as a mentor who would give you and say that if you have to travel from A to point B, I have done that travel, not once, many times over. I know exactly where to stop for food. I know exactly where to stop for rest. This is the best proven route that you can take. So a mentor is someone who is bringing on his expertise, his on ground real experience of managing things, and is passing on to you as a best practice sharing. A coach would be more like a compass. He would say, okay, this is the compass. Now it's up to you to find your direction and your destination. And a coach will help you navigate and guide you to so that you can get to the right direction of yourself. Another analogy just came to my mind very interestingly could be, let's say there are a group of 10 people, 10 of us, and we're on a trek. And somewhere while returning from the trek, it gets dark and we all get lost. So a mentor who's done that trek several times, he will use a torch, go right up in the front, lead the way and ask others to follow. What a coach would do is, coach would not stand right in the front. Coach would stand behind, show the torch, show the light, and let people decide, okay, do you want to go this way? Do you want to take a left? Or do you want to take a right? So I think that's what it is. So in a sense, coaching is when you work with individuals to unlock their potential so that they can do their best, come up with their own best performance, but you don't tell. You just get the people to come up with their own answers. And a mentor is also equally important, by the way. So a mentor is someone who believes in you even before you believe in yourself. And as a true mentor, one of the greatest gift a mentor can give you is to show you what you can become and not what you are. So in that sense, both coaching and mentorship, one thing they have in common is that they bring clarity to the receiver. And clarity for me is power. It's with clarity. Once you have clarity, you know exactly what to do and how to do. So I think that's the space where they merge. But the difference, maybe the analogy helped.
Yeah, of course it did. Of course. When you're doing leadership coaching or the sessions that you conduct, what are like 2, 3 things you focus the most on?
Well, that's a good question and an important one. So again, this would be different from the different lens of different coaches. But in my book, as an executive and leadership coach, for me, it is when I'm working with leaders, starts with self-awareness. And leadership, like we know, and maybe you've heard, is always an inside-out approach. You cannot really give to someone that you don't have yourself. I cannot teach you something that I don't know anything about myself.
Yeah.
So I think the most important focus for me as a coach is to bring out and take my clients on that journey of self-exploration. It's really about identity as a leader, taking them through, helping them explore the what, the why, the who of them as a leader. Putting certain thought processes to them in terms of what kind of leader would they want to be. As a leader, what legacy do they want to leave behind? What would they feel most accomplished when others talk about them in their absence? So that gets people thinking, okay, who do I really want to show up as a leader? And it begins with self-awareness. So that's one part of it. And second, with the nature of the client that I work with, which is in the corporate, working with leaders to drive results is equally important.
Right.
While you take them on the inner exploration journey, but if you cannot partner with them with a very specific performance outcome approach, then it's not really also going to be supportive for them.
Right.
So when you look at it as something that you are engaging with to drive their performance, you also work around goal setting. You also work around the how for them to be able to get to where they want, but deliver results. So I think these two, in my book, as an executive and leadership coach, are the prime focus.
Right. Right. And when you are coaching people, what kind of questions or situations people throw at you?
Yeah, very interesting. So I would say more than the question, it is what they are trying to say or what is there underneath those questions that they are asking. So it's more of common themes and patterns that I have observed that comes across. It could be patterns of self-doubt, uncertainty, lack of clarity, imposter syndrome, even at a CEO level. But one thing, again, as a common theme that I've observed is their passion for growth. So they're hungry for growth. Now, in this lens, if I look at it, I could maybe give some examples of questions that come across. So a mid-career leader once walked up and said that, how am I to even improve as a leader? So his theme was, how do I improve as a leader? Right. And we had conversations. And one of the coaching sessions, he started off with saying that, how am I even to improve as a leader if I have this sense inside me that my team does not trust me? So it's uncertainty, right? Recently, just about a week back, I was coaching a founder of a startup, and he had this interesting question. So he said that, my job is to take decision, but how do I even know if I'm making the right decision? How do I know if I'm hiring the right talent? How do I know the money that I'm investing, the investor's money that I'm investing into my strategies is even going to work? What if I fail? Right? Another time, someone who's at a senior executive leadership said that, I feel I have a lot more inside me, but I feel stuck most of the time. So what do I do? So these would be some of the questions that would come up. But interestingly, like I said, it's not the question. In fact, in coaching, it's said that whatever is the first thing that a client is coming and sharing with you, that's not his problem at all. Because that's the what of the person. What challenges is he facing? What is he doing about it? And what is happening to him
Yeah.
because of the challenges that he's facing? But in coaching, we go to the who of the person, the being of the person. So if he's feeling stuck, what is making him feel stuck? Where is it even coming from? Where is that feeling of stuck in his body resonating the maximum? So when working on the who of a person is a very famous established leadership coach, Marcia Reynolds. She says that coach the person, not the problem, and that is precisely what you do. So interestingly, someone asked me that I think I've done. So this is a young leader, okay, very passionate, very enthusiastic, and he comes up and he says, "I think I do everything right. I deliver, I give result, I'm consistent, and anything that I take on, it's successful.
Okay.
But I don't know, I still don't feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
I still feel unfulfilled. What do I do?" And I paused, allowed space, allowed silence to creep in. Before I asked him, I said, "Okay, what does fulfillment look like, sound like, and feel like to you?" And when I asked this question, there was even a longer silence. And from his face, I could gather that he'd never, ever given himself permission to even think about what is fulfillment for me. So now something that you've not defined, you're obviously going to struggle with it.
Right.
Now you're doing everything right, but you're feeling unfulfilled and you don't know what it is. But you've not really defined it for yourself. And the definition of the words that client use is very unique to them. What fulfillment would mean to me would be very different to what it would mean to you. And that's another example of, when clients are asking or the leaders are asking you questions, you don't start tackling the problem. You start tackling the person. And that's what I meant by, going into the who.
Yeah, that's a great thought, actually. Um, if somebody is really struggling in their careers, what are like the top 2-3 things that they can do to come out of that situation?
I mean, even before answering, I would say that it happens with everyone.
Of course, yeah.
So no one is ever alone when they are struggling. And you'll always have a phase. And I think before you and I were talking, success is not linear. Right? It is a roller coaster.
Right.
So that acceptance, again, I think is important. So my first advice would be that do not fight it, make peace with it, accept it. And that's where you then move on to saying that, how do I set myself up for success? And when setting up for success for anyone, when they're not doing well or they're having a shaky phase in their career, again, I think it bounces back to the very first thing of being self-aware. What is really coming in the way, or also even probably helping them remind themselves of who they are when they are at their best. So when we are in difficult situations, we immediately, the human mind works in a way that we forget that there are things that we've done brilliantly well. We're all focused on this one thing that I'm struggling. So just a reminder at times that, is this the biggest challenge that I've faced? At times people get answers, no, I had a bigger problem than this. Okay, did you come out of it? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
How did that happen? And there starts the journey for them to say, how do I get my confidence back? Okay, I have done it before, I can do it again.
Right.
What worked for me? Now you get into that reflective state for yourself. So that is I think, begin from there. Second, to me, would be, I would recommend, in fact, using a coaching model here, which is globally accepted, used very, very frequently by coaches. So it's not my secret sauce. It's called the GROW coaching model. And GROW is an acronym where G stands for goal. So that's where you define for yourself that when I'm struggling, what am I struggling with and what do I want to achieve? What am I even hoping to, if I come out of this struggle, who am I going to be as a person, as a profession, or even as an individual? Right. So you define your goal. So that's the G. R is your reality. Now you're saying that, okay, if that's where I want to be, where am I today? What are the gaps? What is coming in my way? What resources, tools, exposure do I even need or should have? And you define your current reality. Then you move to O, which is options. So once you've got these figured out, now you look at options. What can support me in this journey of setting myself up for success? Do I have to seek coaching? Do I have to seek mentorship? Do I have to have a better network? Do I want to invest in some course? Do I want to upskill myself? So that's where you lay these plethora of options. And then W stands for way forward. So now that you've got everything, what can I commit to? What can I do? In a sense that when I say setting oneself up for success, it's more how I would urge people to say that it's not really you trying to bounce back, but it is really about how do you from this situation bounce forward. It's not just getting up and saying that, okay, now I know what to do. But when you're going through this exercise of a grow coaching model, you're really looking at it to say that how do I bounce forward such that I'm equipped and empowered to stay on course with what my career should be for a long term, and it's not a short term fix. And the last thing, last advice, Dipankar, that comes to my mind is be very, very selective with the people that you spend time with. Extremely important. You want to be surrounded by people who can uplift you. If you're going through a bad phase of your career and you're talking to someone and who said, I always knew you are not good for this. I'm even surprised that you made it so far.
Yeah.
It's not really going to help you, right, in any which way. A quote from a Persian poet, Rumi, I think comes to mind in this when he says that, set your life on fire, seek those who can fan your flame. So when you're in troubled waters in your careers, you have to have this set of people around you who can fan your flame rather than put water and distinguish it.
Right. These days, career and health and the harmony between them has become like a really big question.
Yeah.
And we've had some like unfortunate incidents
Cases
as well.
Yeah.
So, what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree, especially in today's day and age, where everything is moving fast. There's so much of distraction. Unfortunately, rather than using technology as an enabler, more often than not, people become slaves to technologies, and that detrimentally impacts their well-being, their mental status. So one, I would absolutely agree with that. I think in my opinion, what is becoming more and more important and clear is the ability for each one of us to set our own boundaries. I think it has to begin from there. If you're open for everything, if you're not able to differentiate when do I switch on versus when is the time that I should switch off, and you get lost in this fast paced world of always being switched on, it is absolutely not going to work for you. So, again, I think it begins from reflection, it begins from setting those boundaries, and then living on those boundaries. Being determined to kind of live on those boundaries. And in this journey, like you said, there have been instances. So I think the role of the organization, the role of the leaders also becomes extremely important. So if a leader who is on words promoting, you should take care of your work life and personal life, balance it. You should not bury yourself, burn yourself. But that same leader is sending emails to their employees at 11:30 p.m., 4 a.m. Though he might be saying, I'm sending emails, you don't need to look at it. But as an employee, my peace of mind is definitely getting impacted, right? So even though I consciously or unconsciously, I'm going to get up and say, oh my God, there's an email at 4 a.m. is asking me for something. So your day has begun rushed.
Right.
Even before you've started, you've lost yourself.
Yeah.
So that has an impact. Similarly, there are some leaders who would say, take leave, don't burn yourself. But they never take them leaves themselves. In fact, they're working on weekends.
Yeah.
They're not even taking leaves on their special occasions, on their family celebration occasions. So I think that's also the gap where it's equally important for the organization and leaders to take this very, very seriously.
Yeah, right. Um, you must have coached a lot of leaders by now and also come in contact with them while you were working as an HR. How do you define the mindset of a leader?
Mindset of a leader. I think that's the most important thing, mindset. And we've spoken about it also, because it's your mindset that determines your destination. So in that context, I would probably look at a few more examples of leaders. And when I look at that as a mindset, I'm reflecting to the leaders that have inspired me, the personalities that have inspired me, and has helped me shape my mindset of leaders. And what I feel is the mindset that resonates with most of the successful leaders that I've coached as well. So we spoke about few names, Simon Sinek and all that, but the other name that comes to my mind is John Maxwell. And he says something very, very interesting. So he says that as a leader, every day you must ask yourself one question. The first question is, what do I do today to learn more about myself? And the second question is, what do I do today to learn and grow my people? So again, the essence of serving others comes to the forefront. If I look at it from not a religious but a spiritual context, Jesus Christ, for that matter, his leadership style was one of servanthood. And I have seen a lot of successful leaders who have a lot of calmness and humility about them are exactly doing that. For them, it is about serving. And servanthood leadership from Jesus' context was that he even washed the feet of his disciples, so to say. So I think that so if I look at all these examples and say what are the mindset that I have observed leaders have when I've coached them, it would be first a people-led approach, people-first mindset. Then it would be a growth mindset, extremely important to combat feelings of imposter syndrome, self-doubt. And third, I heard you use that word, and it's a very good word, a resilience mindset. Because success is not more often the result of something big. It's more of a result of something small in different pieces that we do, but do well consistently over a period of time is what makes it successful. So these three would stand out for me in my experience, as well as personal mindset as well.
Yeah. And, we talk about a lot when we say that everybody needs to build their personal brand, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody ends up being known for something.
True.
Right? So how do you inculcate that in your coaching and all the sessions that you do?
Yeah, interesting. And again, personal brand, what I talked about a little while earlier, is really the identity, the who, the what, the why of anyone, not just leaders. So in that sense, I mean, Jeff Bezos comes to mind. So he famously says that a personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Right? And in many ways, it kind of resonates with me a lot. So to answer your question around personal brand and how that kind of can evolve or through the coaching it can work, is that you have to, I think, start with identifying your core value proposition. So in organization, we have a employee value proposition, but for a personal brand, I have to also know what is my core value proposition. How do I articulate that best? Who do I really want to be and show up as? What do I want people to say about me when I'm not in the room, like Jeff Bezos says? Because when you define your core value proposition, you're then able to come up with goals and strategies and a very clear framework of how you want to show up. Once that is done, I believe it's then moving to something that I often say as CVR, which is consistency, visibility, and relevance. Consistency is very important for you to build your brand. Once you know what kind of brand do you want, if I look at my own experience, before till the time I decided to move full time to an executive and leadership coach, my brand on the LinkedIn was more about HR, absolutely about HR. And when I transitioned, one of the first thing as a goal that I had set for myself was to say, what do I need to do to transition successfully to change the brand such that people now look at me more of an executive and a leadership coach. And like core value proposition for me was I want to be a leadership coach. So I decided for myself that everything that I do on LinkedIn, whether I post something, whether I write an article, whether I contribute towards a collaborative article, whether I comment on someone else's post, it will all be somehow relating and centered around leadership. So my thought was that if anyone out there thinks of or has the seeds sown where they want to get coached for a leader, if they come to LinkedIn and land on my page, they should feel very content of saying that, okay, this is the person who I feel is a subject matter expert.
Okay.
So that consistency is what helped me. So everything targeting towards your core value proposition. And then visibility. Like you know it very well, Dipankar. So there has to be this frequency in which you're churning out and reaching out to the audience. And then relevance. I think relevance is important because, again, what you do with your personal brand is not so much of how you will benefit from it, but you're building your personal brand as an identity from a relevant standpoint of whatever you're contributing, whatever you're sharing. Is that relevant for the audience? Is that going to be helpful for them? Is that going to benefit them? So that CVR comes into the perspective. And the last bit around personal branding that I do often myself and I encourage in my coaching sessions to most of my leadership clients is to conduct a personal, authentic, personal brand audit. So it's you do it yourself. You don't need anyone to do it for you. There are 4 stages. The first stage is asking and addressing the question, how do people perceive me? Or sorry, how do I perceive myself? How do I even look at myself as a leader? And then you make a list of 5, 6, 7, 10, whatever things that you can. You mix it into some behavioral aspects versus some technical aspects, but you define, how do I perceive myself? Then you go to the next stage of saying, okay, how do others perceive me? Am I perceived exactly the way that I feel I should be perceived, or is there a difference? And here you reach out to 5, 6 people that you know, the trusted people. It could be your peers, it could be from your family, it could be people that you worked in the past. But selection of these people are important. You want to go to people who will give you the truth,
Right.
who will not hold their punches,
Right.
who will not sugarcoat and say things just to make you happy,
Yeah.
who will tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So you go to these people and they give you the same list of, okay, how do we perceive you? Now, the third step is you see what is overlapping, but importantly, you see where are the blind spots, where there is a disconnect. I thought I was a very compassionate leader, but I'm getting from different people that I need to be more empathetic. Something is wrong. So these blind spot is what you take into the final stage of this personal brand audit to say that, okay, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, where do I want to be in my career? Where do I want to be in my leadership journey? Where do I want to be as a person? And these blind spots that have come up for me, what do I need to do today to work on them so that 3 years, 5 years, whatever target you keep for yourself, I'm a more accepted person of who I feel I am versus how I am being received and experienced by people. People experience you. They don't just meet you and work with you. They really experience you in the sense that one of like 2 most important keywords when I look at leadership is influence and impact. So as a leader, if I cannot influence, if I cannot impact, then somewhere, I'm not really done a good job of a leadership role.
Right.
So this ability to experience people when they meet me and work with me as a leader, of having creating that impact and influence on them, I think that is where the magic of this personal brand audit comes in.
Right.
So yeah, maybe
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah, great. I mean, I think I also should do that audit. Um, my last couple of questions for you. Um, First is looking futuristically, since things have been changing at a rapid pace. What are a couple of qualities that leaders will have to develop to become great leaders in the future?
Yeah, so I don't know what new qualities, but definitely where I feel there is a need for leaders to be focused on. Maybe not new qualities, but what are the qualities that you need to pay more attention to? Be more focused, be more intentional to develop so that you do well in the future. Um, I would have to start with coaching and mentoring. Develop coaching and mentoring skills.
Yeah.
Because when you guide your team, when you coach your team to become the best version of themselves, you're not just helping that individual. For the organization, you are identifying future leaders. You're actually creating a pipeline of good leaders to follow. So you're almost building a succession plan. So I think that should be the first. Something after coming to coaching that I have really grown passionate about is emotional intelligence. The ability to know my emotions, be aware of them, importantly, to be aware, recognize, and accept others' emotions in different situations that I go through as a leader, be aware of my environment, aware of what is the situation really demanding, I think really comes from being emotionally intelligent and higher EQ value for that matter. And I think these leaders who will pay attention and develop emotional intelligence as a skill, as a desired skill, would be better equipped to handle team pressure, team dynamics. They'll be better equipped to resolving conflicts. They'll be better equipped to inspiring motivation. Just from the essence that they have that capacity to not always be reactive immediately to a situation gone wrong, but have that presence, that leadership presence, when something goes wrong, to take a step back and say, how do I learn from this? Right.
Um, and a question which turns out to be very popular. Can leadership be taught, or it's just an innate quality people have?
What do you think?
Oh, I'm not the guest today.
Yeah, and I think it has a similar response.
Yeah.
To be very honest, some characteristics are innate,
Yeah.
but most of the leadership, thankfully,
Yeah.
is a skill and can be developed.
Yeah.
You can become a leader that you want to if you put your mind and heart to it. And that goes back to the earlier question, what personalities suits an HR. So to me, it's not so much about the personality, but it's more about why do I even want to be in HR. And I think the same thing goes as a leadership. So in different workshops that I do, I would more often than not ask this question. So I'll have a group of 15, 20, 20, 30, whatever audience participants. And I would say, who in this leader, who in this group feels that they are a leader, please put your hand up.
Yeah.
And I'm always surprised that very few hand go up. So for them, leadership is still a title, a role. So leadership is, anyone can be a leader in their own capacity, in their own role. You really don't have a title that supports you to say that now that I am an established, bona fide HR certified leader, now I'm a leader. No, it really doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And you have great examples of this. I think one instance that comes to mind and cannot not be spoken about is about Tata Group. And this is back in 2008 when Mumbai had the terrorist attack and the Taj Palace was attacked as well. the Tata Group, in terms of their culture, had this shared values of ethics and responsibility very strongly ingrained into their DNA of the culture of the organization, right? So that attack, that terrible moment, put test to this culture of ethics and responsibilities to the maximum level. The employees of the hotels showed extraordinary courage and selflessness to not run away, but they stayed back. They helped guests to escape from exits which were not known to the public. And even while getting some people out, they came back to escort more people and help them escape too, even at the risk of their own life. So, were they leaders by title? They were staff of the hotel, they were employees of the hotel. Not all of them would have had a badge which said he's a leader. But how did they really behave when the situation demanded so?
Right.
So that's where I feel it's some characteristics are innate, but most of it is something that you. Someone very interestingly also says, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them.
Yeah.
So you could be in any of these three to from where your leadership journey can embark, and any of these three could be the origin.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kenneth, for coming here, speaking to us, pouring your heart out, and also your experience. I'm sure our audiences would have learned a lot from it, and also shared your experiences. I hope in the future we will get another opportunity to speak with you.
Absolutely.
And till then, thank you very much.
Absolutely. It was a great pleasure and a very good use of my time. I enjoyed myself.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.